Blaxploitation became an era of historical and cultural importance not only to African Americans but to popular culture as well. The music, television shows, and films we see today are heavily influenced or referenced by the good and bad of the Blaxploitation era. Yet, many people don't know about this significant moment in time. Before we dive into Blaxploitation, there's a little bit of history behind this era of cinematic history. For years, Hollywood and black representation had nothing but a troubling past. Black people couldn't even play black people, and from then on, representation was still bare. Black people would be constantly sidelined as slaves, butlers, or the most known role, the mammy. The lack of representation as well as the push for equality from the Black Power movement became the moment in which African Americans took their talents and started an era of films centered around black characters. This became known as Blaxploitation. This subgenre of exploitation films emerged during the 1970s. With the common themes of violence, sex, and drugs, these films featured black actors in lead roles and typically centered around African Americans overcoming oppressive, antagonistic, and generally white authority figures, referred to as none other than the man. Many blaxploitation films were mainly action-themed, but they applied to other genres of film like horror, martial arts, and romance. For the first time ever, African Americans finally had some representation in the industry that was more than just sidekick or slave like films before. It's commonly known that Melvin Van Peebles set the groundwork for the genre with the release of his 1971 film Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Directed, written, scored, edited, and starring Van Peebles, it follows the story of Sweetback, a pimp that saves a Black Panther member from racist cops by beating them. With the manhunt underway for Sweetback, he tries to find freedom in Mexico. With a budget of $500,000, the film ended up being a financial success despite mixed reactions towards it. The reception about the film from the Black Panther Party was praised. Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, celebrated the film as it was the first truly revolutionary black film made and presented to us by a black man. Shortly after, films such as Shaft and Superfly followed suit. And with the success of these films, Hollywood knew all that they needed to know that a film centered around African Americans could be a hit. Thus, an influx of blaxploitation films made by non-black Hollywood producers, writers, and directors hit the pot, all wanting to make a quick buck. It is to be noted that while there are many non-black filmmakers exploiting the new market for films for profit, there are many white filmmakers like Michael Campus and Jack Starrett who were independent and activists. Though many African Americans embraced blaxploitation's new brand of black heroines and heroes, the movement was controversial throughout the era. Protests against the films by the NAACP and CORE led to the term blaxploitation. It was coined in 1972 by Junius Griffin, the then president of the Beverly Hills Hollywood branch of the NAACP. The leaders of these organizations felt that these films exploited blackness and perpetuated stereotypes of the black community, though the stars of these films felt the opposite. As the blaxploitation era gained popularity, it launched the careers of notable actors like Fred Williamson, Jim Brown, and Pam Grier. Audience loved the film, but it quickly became a fad as a result of controversy, the oversaturated market, and the emergence of the blockbuster. So, after a 5-year run, the blaxploitation era came to an abrupt end in 1976. Hollywood quickly moved on after making substantial profit on the backs of African Americans. Although the blaxploitation era was short-lived, its impact on cinematic history left lasting impressions that you can still see today. This period of time granted black people opportunities to hold positions in the film industry as directors, screenwriters, actors, among others. With films like Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing and John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, which focused on the urban life of young black Americans, both incorporated elements of blaxploitation while also critiquing the genre's glorification of stereotypes, introducing a new wave of black films. The films didn't just impact black artists. Filmmaker Quentin Tarantino, a fan of the blaxploitation, paid homage to the genre with numerous films, specifically Jackie Brown, starring the legendary Pam Grier, and Pulp Fiction, with Samuel L. Jackson's character Jules. With the slight revival of the genre, a few parody blaxploitation movies appeared in the early 2000s, like Pootie Tang, Undercover Brother, and Kill Bill. Even Austin Powers and Goldmember gives nod to the blaxploitation heroines played by Tamara Dobson and Pam Grier, with Beyonce Knowles' character Foxy Cleopatra. I mean, even her character's name is a combination of Cleopatra Jones and Foxy Brown. Blaxploitation films also influenced the music industry, specifically hip-hop, with archetypes commonly seen in the films The Mac, Superfly, and Willie Dynamite. Hip-hop artists have shown their respect and admiration for the era through song, visuals, and sampling dating back to the 90s. In the root of Snoop Dogg's career, he paid homage to the Blaxploitation era with the music video for Doggy Dogg World. He stayed true to the pimp-like persona in vintage clothing, while also featuring cameos from a number of prominent Blaxploitation actors and actresses, including Fred Williamson, Pam Grier, Rudy Ray Moore, Antonia Fargas, and Ron O'Neal. The impact of Blaxploitation will continue throughout time. We've seen it referenced all throughout pop culture. The era was short-lived, but in those years, African Americans were able to pave their own way in cinema by breaking societal stigmas by creating and starring in films that depict them in diverse roles. And sometimes that included perpetuating stereotypes. Even today, the media doesn't give good representation. It is so hard for us to see black actors as anything other than maids, slaves, or as a sidekick to the white savior trope. Though, the newest generation of black filmmakers are striving to broaden black representation both in front and behind the camera. Since we've transcended the era of Blaxploitation, I think it's extremely important for aspiring filmmakers or media buffs alike to learn the history of it. There's so much media influenced by these films that most people don't even know about this genre. It would be a shame to not give credit where it's due.